that there are some people in this world that did not tune in to the Alliance Vlog podcast. Shame on you!
Shame on you. My name is Ella Indy, and I'm one half of the NWA Women's World Tag Team Champion.
And I'm Kinsey Page, the other half of the NWA World Women's Tag Team Champion.
And you better go listen to the Alliance Vlog, what is it called again?
Podcast, period.
Or you're ugly. Pretty and power approved.
Mi gente, you already know who it is. It's the radioactive pop with Danny Limelight, United Wrestling Network World Heavyweight Champion. And make sure you tune into the Alliance Vlog every week. You heard it here first. Straight from Poppy.
Hey guys, check this out. I am officially now sponsored by Dubby. Dubby is a clean energy drink made to give you focus with no crash. If you guys are like me, you're always needing a burst of energy, especially with one with no crash. Dubby contains vitamins, amino acids, a nootropic, and 150 milligrams of caffeine. It keeps me awake with no jitters, guys. Check it out. Merch link is in the bio. Dubby.
Are you ready?
Power. You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
I'm building an alliance. God bless the internet.
Okay, let's party. It's showtime.
It's time for the Alliance Guys podcast with your hosts Kevin Frazier, Jaden, DKM, and J. Cal.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Alliance Guys podcast, a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance. My name is J. Cal, and with me, of course, is Moondog Spot's cousin, Moondog Jaden, and DK. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Salutations.
Greetings.
What's the good word, gentlemen?
We watch wrestling, NWA wrestling. What good word are you expecting?
There are no good words. Evidently,
I think onomatopoeia is a good word.
It sure does get a lot of buzz.
Yes.
I never onomatopoeia before. What's that like?
Say what now?
You heard me.
No, I didn't.
I said I've never onomatopoeia before. What's that like?
You need to start taking Cialis or something if you have that problem then. Luckily, we're sponsored by Dubby, not Cialis.
Yeah. Oh, if that Blue Chew money wants to come on in, I'll take it. By the way, because we don't have a lot of people here in the chat yet, I'm going to go ahead and say it's just you guys. Don't spread the word out there too much. But thanks to you, in the month of January, we made over $45 in profit from our T-shirt sales. And I went ahead and donated that money directly to the Jamin, how do you say their last name?
You, right?
Pew, the Jamin Pew Family Fund. That you guys can make donations to as well. But, I wanted to pay that forward. You guys were so kind in buying the Alliance T-shirts that I wanted to make sure that we gave that money back to a family that could certainly use it. And, so thanks for your purchases, and I hope we do something good with that money.
What are we talking about tonight?
Well, I know you had reached out to me prior to the pre-party and said, hey, what are you going to talk about with Jarrett? And I wanted to extend an opportunity for you and maybe Jaden to speak about Jarrett. I more or less declared him, without Jarrett, we don't even have the NWA that we have today. And I don't mean that as an insult.
So you're blaming him.
I meant that as a compliment. But maybe, DKM, I know that you're a fan of some of the Southern wrestling. Maybe you could talk about, what Jarrett's contributions to the world of professional wrestling were.
Who do you want to go first, me or Jaden?
You.
Me? Little me? Look, the biggest thing you need to know about Jarrett's success in the world is you look at his TV ratings in Memphis for their Saturday morning show. And, like over half the people who are watching TV were watching wrestling, and like 20% of TVs on, of TVs in the thing were watching wrestling. It was just a simple little studio show that primarily featured your standard enhancement match. And, but people got in to see it. He could sell out, Memphis for weeks on end with the same main event. A couple times when they went through transitions, it was like Gary Lawler versus, Jimmy Valiant 15 weeks in a row or something like that. It was crazy that what he was able to do and who he was able to bring in, and as far as the fans were concerned. I'm not a fanboy per se, though. He wasn't successful here in Texas. He came in, took over World Class, and then split with the Von Erichs and came back when the Von Erichs finally shut down. But he was never really overly successful here. And, he did start TNA with Jeff and worked in that for a while. So he and Jeff had a falling out. But, TNA, they had to basically sell out within about 3-4 months because they lost their financial supply backer and had gone through a lot of money. But, that's the man that Vince McMahon trusted when he thought he was going to go to jail over the steroid trial. He brought Jerry in. And Jerry was very unusual. He did wrestle some, people forget. And he was very unusual for a wrestler of his time in that he was one of the few that was ever promoted as being under 200 pounds. He weighed 199, according to the billings. He was probably really somewhere around 180, 170. But he would be billed at 199 pounds so that he could be that poor, small underdog baby face. And I don't know a lot about his wrestling career, but you can't fault what he did there in Memphis and Louisville and, his little territory. Although he had some ugly belts, I will say that.
Maybe the ugliest in the industry.
Yes.
Hey,
no, there was definitely Mountain State.
That's true.
That's a great point. Jane, why don't you tell us about some of your memories of Jarrett and talk about his influence either on you or just on wrestling as a whole?
Well, my memories, unfortunately, do not exist of Jerry Jarrett much because I was too young, yeah, I guess, wasn't born to really know much about him during his heyday or even during the Memphis heyday or even the 80s Memphis heyday. But going back and learning a lot about wrestling, Jerry Jarrett was incredibly influential. Again, he started off as a professional wrestler, feuded with Tojo Yamamoto, and then later became friends with Tojo Yamamoto in the ring, where he was always behind the scenes. Tojo helped train him. He broke off from the established NWA promoter and got NWA support, which was something very unusual. If it wasn't for Jerry Jarrett, there probably wouldn't have been a Midnight Express or a Rock and Roll Express. There definitely probably wouldn't have been a Jerry the King Lawler. And I don't think the huge run that Mid-South went through, their talent exchange, Mid-South won that talent exchange, but it was brought over by Jerry Jarrett asking Bill Watts where the Felicio women that enjoy fellatios are. And he's like, what? And yeah, again, I'm trying to keep you guys from getting demonetized, but there was no good-looking young baby faces in the territory. And he not only sent them those baby faces, he sent them a booker that knew what to do with them in Bill Dundee. And that was a huge thing for Mid-South. For Memphis, he was incredibly influential. He once tried to buy the AWA. Wanted to basically run control of that. And the only thing that stopped him as part of the deal is he would have had to make Greg Gagne the booker. And I believe, if I remember correctly, the line is, if Greg was any good at booking, I wouldn't need to be buying it.
Oh, shit.
He says he wasn't, or DK says he wasn't successful in Memphis, in Texas. He wasn't successful outside of Dallas. He did have a run for a while with Eric Embry booking, where that was a hot territory for a short time, based on Eric Embry.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the period between when World Class became USWA and Eric Embry was, as you said, booking, but that was basically Eric Embry.
Yes.
Jarrett himself didn't really interfere. And a lot of people forget Texas ignored everything that happened in Memphis.
And vice versa.
I mean, Lawler was the undisputed champion, and Texas ignored every title change he had until I think Snowman. But he would be dropping the title here and there, and Texas just totally ignored him.
Yeah, but he would be champion in Texas, not be champion in Tennessee. But something I always hated, honestly, I still to this day think that's something that's, I never was a fan of agreeing in that. I know it was a territorial thing, but I always hated that. But he was a huge influence on professional wrestling. He was the stereotypical, he didn't invent studio wrestling, but well before Georgia took it to the next level, it was Memphis that perfected it. Before we saw the Crockett's and everything else, it was Memphis that perfected studio wrestling.
Was this live?
What's that?
Says
was
so.
It live?
Oh yeah, it was live. Yeah, they went live on Saturday mornings at 10 o'clock in the morning, and have more people watching than are currently watching AEW. So imagine that.
That's wild. I mean, that to me, that's the wildest stat that you pulled out, was like more people were watching Memphis, basically in Memphis, than what people are watching in AEW across the country.
Because it wasn't always live where they were watching it. They took the tapes around to all the territories, but that program drew more people in the Memphis territory than in the entire country is currently watching AEW. And it wasn't far off what the entire country is watching WWE right now. And Jim Cornette mentioned that the reason he was the handpicked man, bless you, to take over the WWF from Vince McMahon if he went to jail, is because he never wanted it. And that's the only reason they trusted him, because he was the only person who didn't want to run the WWF. He didn't want to take control and take it from the McMahons. He didn't want to live in the Northeast. And that's the reason that depends on where in the Northeast. If it's above me, no. In fact, it's maybe a little bit lower than me. But nobody wants to live in the Northeast. At least not people in their right mind. But again, he was a very smart man who understood wrestling. When he was booking, the territory was generally better than when Lawler was booking. It also made a lot more money. So, but still, he was a very influential man, and he's going to be missed in the wrestling business. It's a shame. All the people whose minds that people really should be trying to mine that intelligence and find out what made them so successful, they're all disappearing at such a rate, and that's a resource we'll never get back.
This is true. There's the expression is the learning tree, and I know, like,
on the pre-party, I read a message that Dave Marquez spoke about very kindly of Jerry Jarrett. Of course, Jerry Jarrett made a few appearances in Memphis, and they had a relationship from the time where Jerry Jarrett was in the NWA. Excuse me, when Jerry Jarrett was in TNA, and Dave Marquez was part of the NWA board of directors, and so they had kind of they had their dealings with in the past. I'm trying to pull it up here real quick, and I want to read what Bill Barron said about Jerry Jarrett, because I think Bill Barron's is a guy who definitely, what was that? Definitely knew, had that working relationship with Jerry Jarrett, was very fond of him. And he said, I met Jerry Jarrett at the NATPE convention. I was a wrestling fan who had been helping promotions get on TV as one of my TV syndication jobs. In 1993, Jerry called me, and that led to my career in professional wrestling. Because of Jerry Jarrett, I was contracted by first the WWE, then WCW multiple times. He opened those doors. I syndicated the USWA TV show. When USWA died, I still needed a TV show to send to the WWE, my distributor. Jerry suggested I work with Burt Prentice to continue TV, so we created Music City Wrestling, then later NWA Worldside. After I joined the NWA, Jerry and Jeff hired me, AJ Styles, and others while I was helping in my NWA Wildside when they started TNA. Without Jerry Jarrett, my life would have been very different, and I would have never met the people most important to me. Quite literally, that phone call in 1993 changed my life. Thank you, Jerry Jarrett. Rest in peace. And that's kind of what I was alluding to, anyways, on Tuesday, about how influential Jerry Jarrett was to the NWA, because you have to remember at that time in that late 1999, 1998, early 2000, Wildside was one of really the only promotions still constantly promoting events. And because of their syndication deal, those matches were seen across the country. And I wonder what would have happened if that phone call had never happened. If Music City Wrestling never existed, I think you would still have had Jane, help me out, the New Jersey promoter.
Fred?
No, not Fred, before Fred.
Carluzzo?
Yeah, you still would have had Dennis Carluzzo, and you probably still would have had Joe Price down in Florida, and you probably would have still had Howard Brody, but I think things would have looked radically different. Do you agree, disagree?
I think Carluzzo was out when Wildside was around, but Music City he might have been around.
Okay.
But it definitely looked around. There was a promotion running in the state called NWA 2000, and its champion was Stevie Richards, and he was going to wrestle. They wanted to book him. They had him on an NWA Wildside event, but he pulled off because the NWA Wildside was syndicated in this state. It was on a station that had enough of a pull that it made a difference for people, with the NWA and with the promotions. And he could pull it off because he didn't want to be seen losing on television as the NWA 2000 champion. Wow. And again, that says a lot for both Stevie Richards. I mean, that really wasn't the day that I was that big of a deal, so it was kind of cool. But it also shows you how Wildside made a big influence on Philadelphia wrestling. The original owner of ECWA, Jim Kettner, brought in AJ Styles based off of his exposure with NWA Wildside in the area. And that's Delaware. It's a little south, but still, AJ Styles was well known in the Philadelphia market because of NWA Wildside. And I think it was before Impact. He was in the Super 8s when that meant something. And that again is because of NWA Wildside. And if it wasn't for NWA, if it wasn't for Jerry Jarrett, we wouldn't have that.
Yeah. So it's a tragic loss. I mean, look, he had a good run. I'm not going to try to tell you that he had a short life, but I also feel like anytime someone passes away, it's sad. it's kind of just one of those things, I guess. But let's move on. Let's talk about our gal Camille for a minute, if you guys don't mind, because what this woman is doing just blows my mind, because we know that she defended her women's championship the Friday night before the pay-per-view, before Nuff Said. And it was she came out there, I think it was oh boy, now I can't remember. I think it was Coastal Championship Wrestling, I think. And she defended the title out there, and then the next night obviously had that big hardcore match with Angelina Love, and we'll get to the results of the pay-per-view in a little bit. But that match was brutal. It was tough. It was rough. If you guys have been watching Camille's social media feed, I mean, she's out there training with Tyson Kidd and Natty Neihart. She's out there training with Lindsay Snow. She's out there trying to get better, and I keep seeing the title defenses line up. I know later in the year she's going to be wrestling Paige's mom. Jane, help me out with her name. I never say it right.
Is it Soraya?
Soraya, thank you so much. She's going to be facing Soraya later this year in Chicago. But she's actually making her debut in Chicago this week. And she'll be actually there on February the 17th. She'll be facing Shelly Benson and a face familiar with NWA crowds, Sky Blue. Blue's last NWA match was back in November of 2021. She was a regular for the NWA by way of Mission Pro Wrestling, but now she's more of a regular for AEW. That's where she spends most of her time. The third woman in the ring will be Shelly Benson, who has faced off against Sky Blue frequently, but again, it'll be the first time she stepped in the ring with Camille. Oddly enough, Sky Blue never actually stepped in the ring against Camille, so this will be a first-time encounter for all three ladies. And that's, this is February 17th, but then there's matches that are already lining up for next month and next week. And I'm celebrating her because she's getting so many bookings, but she has a match coming up soon with LuFisto. Again, we mentioned Soraya, and she's going to be part of course, the NWA versus AAA down there in Mexico on March the 4th, which your boy Jay will be there. Then she's also still going to be part of the Lucha Libre World Cup. And I don't know if you guys have seen the flyer for that, but literally Camille is flanked by Donna Purrazzo, a former TNA Knockouts champion, and Jordan Lynn Grace, who I believe is a former Knockouts champion as well. And you've got Camille front and center there. And I think that speaks volumes about what people are thinking about Camille as a wrestler and what she's bringing to the table as Women's World Champion. DK, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No. Obviously, Camille's out there doing a lot and needs to be recognized for what all she's managed to do, what all she's doing. And I think hopefully this might be the beginning of her getting a chance to advance just in her wrestling career altogether. That doesn't necessarily mean joining one of the big companies, but just, getting out there and getting more exposure and more bookings across the globe.
This just handed to me. Sky Blue will not be able to compete at Chicago Style Wrestling this weekend, so it will be Shelly, the Bombshell Belt Benson versus the Brickhouse Camille one-on-one. So it will no longer be a triple threat match.
Even better.
Jaden, what are your thoughts on Camille?
I'm really glad she's getting out there. She's really making a name for herself. This is what if she could have started this a little earlier, she probably would be right now somewhere bigger than she currently is. But I think it's a great idea. you get more experience wrestling different crowds, wrestling different wrestlers from all over. It's something you learn from and can. It's if you want to be something in the business, you need to, no matter what you're doing, if you want to be something great, you have to practice at it. Very few people naturally have the ability to. They don't need, or don't. They can get away with not practicing and getting the repetitions in. And that's what she's doing right now. It's only going to help get people know her. She's going to be seen to a crowd that may not even know the NWA exists on YouTube, and maybe they will look her up and find that out. And it's just going to be better for everybody. So I'm very proud of her for that. She's doing a great job. I'm a little tired of her as champion, but again, I really haven't been watching that much, so I guess maybe I have no right to be. But it's not because of her; it's just because of the NWA's booking.
Just a few more notes. She did defend the title just yesterday in Michigan against Shauna Reed for I believe the event was called IWR. I'm not familiar with that group, but I'm just checking things out here. Also, she will be part of that title match network ladies night out, the triple shot, where she'll be defending against Angelica Risk. And so again, like this woman is very, very busy. We're very proud of her, and I think it's great. I hear what you're saying, Jaden, because I get where you're coming from. But again, I think that's more of a NWA problem than a Camille problem. I really feel like, I think they kind of crushed a lot of her momentum by giving her everything all at once. And I don't mean like that they gave her everything. I just mean that, the Ty Valkyrie match should have been built up. That should have been a major match. That should have been maybe the 75th anniversary show. I felt like we got that too quickly. Kylan King kind of got that build up, but then that was kind of funky too. Then she had a victory over the former women's tag team champion, former women's champion, and Allison Kay, with very little build up. Here it is. Here's a match. Oh, she won again. Maxine Taylor. Okay, here it is. There's a match. She wins again. I really felt like a lot of those matches should have been standalone and should have been built up for those events. But yeah,
you can say that. You can say that pretty much everything in the NWA, though.
That's true.
Let me get to some of the comments real quick because I see some interesting comments that I wanted to read before we get to the pay-per-view reactions. Dave Scooby said that coast-to-coast Camille hit was insane. If you guys didn't see that on the pay-per-view, that clip is circulating on Twitter. Check it out. I mean, she makes Rob Van Dam proud with that one because she literally
even Shane McMahon.
Yeah, maybe better than Shane McMahon's, and that's saying something because Shane had a pretty decent one. James H. Jackson said in an interview the other day, Camille had said she wants to defend the title in Ring of Honor on their weekly TV studio show or on one of their pay-per-views. I mean, yeah, and I want a seat made out of gold too, a toilet seat made out of gold, but that's not always in the cards. But it would be pretty amazing if she did. Let's see. I know James in the chat is talking about Sky Blue. If you guys want to know anything more about her, we got Polka Dot Pam in the house. Polka Dot Pam is wrestling royalty. I think I've seen Polka Dot Pam at pretty much every single NWA pay-per-view in the last few years. So what's up, Pam? I think this might be the first time you've joined us. Thanks for being here. But just, we could keep going on and on about how great Camille is, but this isn't a Camille Stan podcast. It's an NWA podcast, so we'll move on. The next thing I wanted to get to is that the Mortons will be appearing at All Pro Wrestling in Bristol, Tennessee, Saturday, February the 18th. Also on that card will be former NWA World Tag Team Champions, the Heat Seekers, former World Junior Heavyweight Champion Chase Owens, the MLW's Matt Cross. He used to be quite the name in the NWA for a while. No word on who Kerry will defend the title against, or even if he's defending the title, but I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing him wrestle against Chase Owens to kind of get that old school junior heavyweight rub. What do you guys think about that?
I also wouldn't mind to see him against Mad Dog Matt Cross either.
That'd be a test for him for sure.
What about you, DK? What do you think?
I don't.
They finally admitted at least.
Oh no, I've openly admitted it for years. I'm sorry. I'm just not a Kerry Morton fan, and I don't have a lot of interest in it.
Well, how about a tag team that you might have interest in? La Rebellion. That's Mecca Wolf and Bastia 666. They are set to return to Corpus Christi, Texas on February the 18th. That's this weekend for the GCWA's Love Bites. Now, longtime fans of the NWA might remember that GCWA was a member of the National Wrestling Alliance back when it had more of the territories and in that Bruce Tharp era of the NWA. The World Tag Team Champions actually had defended the NWA tag titles at GCWA the last time they were there. And in fact, it was a title versus title match where they won the GCWA tag team titles last year, WrestleMania weekend. This will be their first defense of those tag titles. So it's been a long time coming. But if you are in the Corpus Christi area and you want to check out La Rebellion, I highly recommend heading down to the GCWA's Love Bites.
Okay, let's do it.
And then also, hey, two other news items that were announced via the NWA Power episode that just aired on Tuesday night is that first and foremost, the NWA will be adding an additional championship to the litany of titles that are already on the shows and the roster. They're going to be adding the NWA Women's Television Championship, and this will be obviously the secondary women's singles title. Jaden, what does adding an additional women's championship actually do for the NWA?
Absolutely nothing. Exactly how well has the NWA US title really elevated any tag team, even the Fixers, to world title status? And if they even do that stupid 6:05 time limit,
Which
it's just going to be worse.
It's gonna be the same gimmick as the TV title, the men's title.
Stupid gimmick.
DK, what are your thoughts?
I am conflicted in the following sense.
All right.
NWA needs another title like you need 3 more hats on top of your head. Don't do it, Jay. That's my whole point. The second thing is the good part would be if they did it right, this would give them a chance to showcase some women in a secondary title position on TV, and you wouldn't have to rely on Camille to basically be the all. All right. Someone sent me a rumor that he's also talking about doing a secondary women's tag team championship, which he only has 2 women's tag teams at any given moment. I don't know why he would ever think about that, but God, where's Dave Lagana when you need him?
It's so ironic how Lagana was like, no, we don't need more titles. We need like 3 titles. That's it. And since then, we've exploded with championships. I mean, James in the chat said it. Billy's like Oprah with these titles. You get a championship, and you get a championship, and you get a championship.
Well, here's my thing. I don't really care how many championships he has, but he needs a roster that supports it. You know, it was funny. We talked about one point in AEW before they bought Ring of Honor that it was almost like they didn't have enough championships because they have, it was like heavyweight, at least on the men's side, it was a heavyweight, the
TNT.
Yeah, TNT. That's the one I'm trying to think of. The TNT and the tag team titles, like they had this big, huge roster, and they only had 4 possible people to be champions. And then they did the women's. So okay, there was a women's championship, and then they did secondary women's, which is almost as big of a joke as Tyrus holding the TV titles.
Not a Jada Cargill fan?
What?
Not a Jada Cargill fan?
I will give her that she's gotten better, but she's still very young, very green. And see, when people talk about boring, she's not that good, but she's never going to lose the title, kind of like you did with Tyrus in the TV title. I mean, Tyrus never lost the TV title.
So our friend, go ahead. I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt.
So, I'm just saying that my thing with there was that, of course, then they went overboard with all the ROH titles and trios titles, and they were using some AAA titles at the same time. That was almost like, okay, now you've overdone it. So, if the NWA wants a secondary title, sure, bring in enough women, but build people freaking up so that it means something. I mean, let's be honest, our current U.S. Tag Team Champions have lost more than they've won. We haven't seen them since they won the title. And to be completely honest, I don't know if any of us care if we would ever see them again. And so that's not what you do. That's not it. That's not what
Willie has a joke. Willie is our in-house jokester when it comes to talking about Tyrus. He says the NWA needs another title like Tyrus needs another banquet meal.
Yeah, exactly. And Tyrus looks like he's going back for those banquet meals now after he's had his matches with Murdoch. So,
I want to get to what our friend Polka Dot Pam said. I'm happy to see another women's title. There's a lot of women to compete for it. I will say this. There was a point in time where a TV title made a lot of sense when you had like Genocide and Sky Blue and Lady Frost and Melina to kind of mix it up with some of the other women you had on the roster. But because they have the women's tag team championships, I almost feel like they would be better served by creating some more tag teams. Like, now I get why you have you have a Misa Kate, you have a Maddie, very talented ladies. It looks like maybe Kenzie Page might be flying solo here very soon. There are a lot of talented women on the roster. I don't want to take away from that. I just feel like at this point in time, it might make more sense to put the emphasis on that women's tag team division more so than creating an additional title. I mean, we're talking, but it's already been decided. It's already a done deal. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think we're going to talk Billy out of that idea, but I just feel like, what DKM said was the Renegade Twins and Pretty Empowered. And that's it. Like, there isn't a real tag team division outside of those two tag teams. Now, I'm sure the door is open for the Hex to come back at any time, but they appear to be pretty busy with Impact. So, who would you add to the women's tag team division? There are women tag teams out there. Heather Monroe has been teaming with Laney Luck, according to our good friend Heebs. But who else?
They have to create, honestly, tag teams out of good women wrestlers and try to find those zirconium in the rough to steal a Dr. Zirconium line. But they really just need to create new tag teams and maybe even find a few. I mean, the Renegade Twins were a gold mine for them, and I think that's a good thing. Maybe either there could be a real program with them and Pretty and Powerful. And maybe they'll be able to, maybe they can trade the championship back and forth. I know it's not the greatest ideal thing, but right now, what else can they possibly do until they actually build some people up?
And I will say this, like Poya was on the Other Alliance Guys podcast last week, and she had mentioned, excuse me, not last week, I meant yesterday, on the Other Alliance Guys podcast, and she mentioned that there are more women that are going to be coming to the NWA, getting ready to debut. Maybe we missed some of it because we haven't seen the new matches that have been taped and whatnot. But I just feel like there's a lot of good things about the NWA, but I think you have a women's tag team division that needs some attention. And instead of creating women tag teams, we're seeing more intergender tag teams that I don't think we need to see, like Mercurio and Natalia Markova are teaming together. It looks like CJ and Magic Jake might be teaming together at some point. And it's like, well, let's take that emphasis off of the intergender tag teams and let's just put some female tag teams together. I don't know.
Don't try to make sense.
Luthez says, I really want Heather Monroe back in some capacity. Heather Monroe is a delight. I got to sit next to her for about 18 hours on the way to China, and she's a heck of a girl. I like her a lot. Love to see her in the NWA. I know that Billy had a lot of complimentary words about her when they were in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. So who knows? Maybe
if I'm not mistaken, Nick Aldis also was a fan of hers.
Nick Aldis, yeah, sure. Carlton says, I think you could work with Kenzie Page, Markova, La Rosa Negra, Maxine Paler, and Baby Doll's daughter. I mean, and you're right. I mean, there is enough talent there to put on a TV title division, but then you're still leaving the cupboard empty for that women's tag team division. Like we've talked about this in the past. If you don't have 5 good challengers for a title, what's the point of even making one?
It's supposed to be 8 to 10. If you do not have 8 to 10 good challengers for any championship, then you really don't need that championship. Do you have 8 to 10 good challengers for any championship in the NWA right now?
I think you can make the case for maybe the world title, but outside of that, I don't know that you have 8 to 10 good challengers for the other remaining championships.
So let me guess, it's going to be Matt Cardona in a mask, Matt Cardona in a wig, Zack Ryder. There's 4 right there, right?
There's still a lot of rumors he's going back.
Well, okay, so let's because I know you guys don't want to talk about everything else. Let's talk about that for a minute then. If you look at the roster right now as it stands, give me 8 names that you think could be in contention for the world title. Or Jaden, I'm going to ask that question on your behalf because I want to answer some of these too. Because I think, obviously, Matt Cardona is your number 1 contender. Yeah, we got that. It looks like another number 2 contender. You've always got Trevor Murdoch right behind it, right? I mean, would you have a problem with Trevor Murdoch being a contender for the 10 pounds of gold at this point?
No, I mean, he would make sense.
We lost Jaden.
Yeah, well, look, I can even throw some things out here real quick.
Go ahead.
This is just looking at the results of the pay-per-view. And with proper storylines, the following people could make good challengers for the world title. Now, notice I didn't say good champions. I'm not saying these are guys that should win the title.
Right.
I'm saying that these are guys that could make good challengers for the title. And so you have the national champion Scion. I think you could even throw in former junior heavyweight champion Homicide.
Okay.
You could look at Chris Adonis. Obviously, former world champion Trevor Murdoch.
Polka Dot Pam likes your answer with Chris Adonis.
Yeah. EC3. You could look at the start of a storyline with Thrill Billy.
Yeah.
again, not necessarily somebody I put the title on tomorrow, but somebody who you could, we all remember Sting's first match with Ric Flair in the 40-minute draw or whatever. So certainly somebody who you could put in the ring with him, even if you're not expecting him to do it. You have Thom Latimer. And so I don't know how many people that was, but I that would be a decent run over a year.
And in the
I named 7.
You didn't mention. Did you mention Bubba Ray Dudley? Bully Ray?
No, I didn't. But that, and I can't say I'd actually be thrilled with the idea of Bully Ray, but that also does leave the opportunity to bring in the occasional person or occasional name to challenge. If you wanted to look, it would be so much better if you get the title off Tyrus, because some of the matchups just would work better with not Tyrus. But Davey Richards recently lost the MLW National Openweight Championship. He's certainly somebody you could bring in for a match against, world champion for a one-off. And, there might be 1 or 2 people if Impact are willing or who could come in and do some one-offs.
I have a name that I would throw out there who I think could work with anybody on the NWA roster who has
Tyrus?
Even Tyrus.
No.
Willie Mac.
I think Willie Mac's somebody who could be brought in, and I'll admit I haven't seen Willie since he's left the NWA and went to Impact, and I never watched him in Impact. I don't know what he's doing these days. Assuming he still can do what he did back then, yeah, I mean, he would certainly be a good guy to go in. He could have a good match with most people. I don't know that anyone can have a good match with Tyrus.
With Willie Mack, and I'll say this because, fortunately for me, being that I live in Southern California, I've been able to watch him in Championship Wrestling where he still has a residency. I've been able to watch him at the Crash in Tijuana, although that's been a while since I've been out there. And the thing about Willie Mack is he has this, first of all, he exudes charisma like no other. I don't know why people find him so remarkable, like his personality, but people are glued to that guy. But then in the ring, like he can do things a guy his size should not be able to do. The way he flies around the ring is almost like it defies the laws of physics. And then he was here, and then he was gone. And then Willie's been having, like he's wrestling guys bigger than him. He's wrestling guys smaller than him. And the fact, I really think like he's the guy that could bump well for Tyrus, but also deliver a believable offense to a bigger man. Where like, you put Rolando in the ring with Tyrus and nothing's believable. Everything looks stupid. But you put someone like Willie Mack in the ring with Tyrus, and then you believe when he hits him with that leg lariat, if Tyrus doesn't go down, if Tyrus doesn't willingly go down, Willie will make him go down.
Yeah, there's some of that. And look, I do want to explain some of my criticism of Tyrus when I say it's just hard to look good with him. Tyrus, his knees and his lack of movement just make him a hard person to have a match with.
Yeah.
And he's not in the best of shape, and it's just difficult. He can't necessarily hold his part. I mean, he does some selling, but man, it can be some of it's even hard to believe, and we can talk a little bit about that as we switch gears and go to the pay-per-view to cover it real quick.
Yeah, we Carlton Paget says says he has that junkyard dog effect, but on a smaller level, Mac is that guy. I mean, I'm just gonna say this. I've been fortunate enough to see Willie Mac since the very beginning. When he was a fan at the XPW shows to literally being flown into Mexico to wrestle, and that guy has it. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but he has it, and he has it in spades. And I think he can be successful anywhere they end up using him. But let's get to the pay-per-view. And now I'm looking, I don't have my notes in front of me, so give me just a second to pull them up. Of course, I don't have them ready, but give me just a second. What were your overall thoughts on the pay-per-view?
I thought it was a solid pay-per-view. Not as good as I think they normally produce, but there were only 2 bad matches. Fortunately, one of the bad matches was the main event.
I knew that was coming.
There were only 2 matches I didn't like, and they had a couple of humdingers in there. They had a couple I pretty much enjoyed, thought were fun, but there was nothing that was blow away on this particular pay-per-view. And that happens. And I agree. And we can look at it, and we did have some weird heel face dynamics that, as the NWA continues to do this modern trend for their old school style of wrestling, of blurring what's a face and what's a heel, and without having any particular reason.
Yeah. Sorry. I've been feeling under the weather, so I apologize, guys, if I'm a little off today. I've got something going on. I've got a sore throat and an earache, and I'm not doing great. But let's talk about this pay-per-view.
Well, just survive this.
I feel like I can. So we start off with the pre-show, and we're at the Egypt Shrine Center in Tampa. And the first match that kicks off the event will be La Rosa Negra taking on Misa Kate. Now, we all agreed that Misa Kate was going to take the L here, and we weren't wrong. I liked the match. I thought it was a good match, and especially coming off the announcement of the TV title tournament, I would imagine both of these ladies are going to be featured in that. What did you think about this match?
I thought it was exactly what it needed to be for the opening match.
Yeah.
It had enough action, enough excitement. Both ladies are well-versed enough to put on a solid opening match that kind of got you into wrestling. So no complaints from me on this one.
Pam said it was a packed house with a really fun energy. And you know what? And Pam could attest to this. I think the fact that they have been traveling for their pay-per-views, it's not in the same spot. I think that was one of the worst things they did pre-pandemic, was do so many of those pay-per-views from the GPB studios in Atlanta. I really felt like that slowed down momentum. And I feel like if they could have gotten to more venues early on, of course the pandemic paused everything, but I feel like they had a lot of momentum. You get these new crowds, you get different reaction, you get different people there. So I believe that the energy was probably pretty good. I mean, it translated well on camera. It seemed like people were into the show. The next match up, we had Dak Draper and Mims going against the Outlaws. I'm still not really sure what the name of this tag team was, because they called them the Savages and then they called them the Outlaws. But it was Blake Bulletproof Troop in what was maybe his only second match for the NWA, but I think maybe less than 10 matches total in his career, teaming with former world champion, former world tag team champion, former national champion, former North American champion. I'm talking about Jack Stane with Chris Silvio in their corner. Now, this match we all predicted. Well, let me rephrase that. You predicted that you and I predicted that Dane and Troop were going to win, and Jaden kind of made it sound like it would be a no contest. We were all wrong on this one. Mims and Draper got the victory.
Did I
there was some shenanigans involved. Chris Silvio getting involved with the match. Just I don't know what they were trying to do. If you're trying to, obviously, you gave them a tag team name. That means you're going to try to use them as a tag team. Why not? He had such a great run with his former tag team partner in Crimson. So why not put Jack Stane in another tag team with a big muscular guy? Sure, that makes sense to me. Except for they took the loss, and I was kind of surprised by this one. What were your thoughts on it?
I was a little surprised. I'm almost more surprised to hear that I picked that Dane and what's his name were going to win. I think I figured that because I figured they'd pin Mims. But I also remember thinking they were pushing Dak a lot, that he could possibly get the win.
Mm-hmm.
Since I don't know that he's lost yet. I don't remember specifically. But
he lost against Scion in the national title match.
Yeah. All right. So he's I don't know what to think of this match. And the reason I don't know is because I can't figure out what they're doing. Like you said, it seemed like they were getting ready to put Dane and Bulletproof or whatever his name is.
True.
As a tag team. I mean, you notice Dane had a different look. He was just out there in a t-shirt. He didn't have his big fur vest. He wasn't wearing his sunglasses. He wasn't doing the same kind of smooth criminal operator, whatever, So it was almost like, okay, they've changed his gimmick. They put him in a tag team with his tag team partner. And, to be honest, Troop looked green. Hasn't quite figured out how to work his MMA style. But it's just like, with this, they were saying, why are they putting Dane in tag team purgatory? And that's almost what it seems like they've done. He's been one of those that it seems like they want him, they think they can use him, but they don't really know what they want to do with him right now. And so since they don't know what they want to do with him right now, they kind of put him off over here. And we saw how well that worked when they did that with Eli Drake.
Well, and so I literally just pulled up a photo and I'm going to share it here. I was at Blake Bulletproof Troop's first match, and I just want to point something out that in his corner right there, you can see it plain as day. Chris Silvio has been around Blake Bulletproof Troop for quite some time. And, as soon as
I did mention that a lot.
I did?
No, they did on the commentary.
Okay. And his first match actually was against Jordan Clearwater at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. It was actually one of the primetime live pay-per-views, and his debut match. It was fine, but like you said, he's not ready for a big push unless you're going to protect him and put him in just squash matches and build him up like a Goldberg-esque type character, but keep him on the mid card. Don't let him go too far into the main event because he should just be wrecking people right now. Like, that's what he should be doing. That's how you're going to utilize him. He's going to be an MMA fighter turned pro wrestler. I don't think the best way to do that is by putting him in a tag team where you're losing to another makeshift tag team.
Does wrestling know how to do that anymore?
I don't know.
I mean, I haven't really seen it. The closest I've seen that with is actually the TBS champion we were talking about earlier, Jade Cargill.
Yeah.
You know, they've given her some more competitive matches as time's gone on, but, you know, she just kind of started with just crushing people. And the only ones who they have a tendency to do that with are no-talent bums like Amos and Veer and whoever, you know, WWE was pushing. And
no-talent bums.
Bums. No-talent bums. No-talent asses. You know, who they're trying to get over but never will. And by the way, at the end of this, we're going to talk about how you do not get somebody over at the end of this pay-per-view. But
well, let's
move on.
Let's get to the next match where we had the and it was billed initially as an intergender match, but then they just said, no, it's gonna be a regular tag team match. Because all parties agreed to it. So it was Natalia Markova and Mercurio taking on Genocide and Max the Impaler. Now, they brought Max's manager from Ring of Honor. I don't know a whole lot about that deal, that relationship. I did see that Poyo mentioned yesterday on the other Alliance guys that it might have just been a one-off. But there was Max with their manager. And the match itself wasn't bad. Like, I kind of thought it was a pretty good match considering. We all thought that Genocide and Max the Impaler were going to win that match. All three of us. And boy, were we wrong. And I don't know if we shouldn't have been wrong. But there was also rumors speculating that maybe there's going to be an intergender tag team. So, you know, building up Mercurio and Natalia Markova might be the best way to benefit from that. But I'm not a big fan of the intergender wrestling anyway. But this wasn't that great of a match. And I like Natalia Markova quite a bit. I think she's fantastic. I like Genocide quite a bit. I think she's fantastic. And Max the Impaler is pretty awesome as well. So, like, really, the only one I didn't like in that match was Mercurio.
Yeah, I mean, that was the problem with this match. That you saw three people who were desperately misused in Markova, Genocide, and Max. And then another person who was just there in Mercurio. And, you know, actually, it's been so long since I've seen Mercurio in just a normal match that I almost don't remember if the guy can wrestle or not. Obviously, he never just far out impressed me, but he apparently also never made me go, oh, God, he's just horrible.
The first time I saw him wrestle was at Primetime Live, and he wrestled against Levi Shapiro, who Levi Shapiro isn't like an ace or anything like that, but he's a good hand. And I kept thinking the entire time that I saw Mercurio, who was wrestling under his government name, I just thought, man, this guy was wooden, laconic, not very agile in the ring. I wasn't impressed whatsoever. And I got to be honest, nothing he's done in the NWA swayed me of that thought process. Jaden, do you have any opinion on Mercurio, or did you see this tag team match?
I saw the tag team match, and I really just didn't see much into it. I kind of agree with DK. There's better uses for Maxi Impaler and Genocide, and I think Sophia should go back to Two Broke Girls.
Natalia Makova. Jane's not a big fan of Natalia. All right. Then that
I'm not a big fan of her in the NWA, but I've seen her other places, and she's actually pretty good.
That's the problem. I haven't seen her anywhere else, so I only have the NWA to base on it. And Stifler's mom just doesn't do it for me.
the match that I missed was Odinson versus Joe Alonzo, and we all agreed that Odinson was going to take that one, and we were all correct. Joe Alonzo is, and I heard, I don't mean to keep referencing the other Alliance guys. You can watch their show on Wednesdays, but they did make an excellent point that Joe Alonzo kind of has this. He kind of feels like like the Colby Carino that the NWA missed out on when Colby went on his left the NWA. It kind of feels like he's filling in that role. Would you agree, DKM?
Probably. This was one of those matches that, it was all right for what it was on a buy-in for a pay-per-view. I don't know that it would make you want to buy the pay-per-view, but it certainly wouldn't. Whereas I thought the intergender match might turn you off for a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
But this was one of those ones that left me scratching my head because Odinson was the face all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And I'm not really sure why.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they did. I don't know if that was the plan or if they did an audible in the ring and Alonzo became the heel. But I was left kind of confused as to how are you going to book him? Who is he supposed to be? And, it's just one of those weaknesses within the NWA. I don't know who I'm supposed to support and who I'm supposed to hate. And it reminds me of a biblical passage where when God's talking to one of the churches in Turkey, modern day Turkey, he says something like, he goes, I wish you were hot or I wish you were cold, but you're lukewarm. And so I'm going to spit you out. And so that's kind of the way I feel this who's a heel, who's a face booking that they do. You leave these guys as just kind of lukewarm, confused individuals, and I'd rather just spit them out. And so, Odinson looked fine in the match, probably looked better than he did in a lot of matches, but then Joe Alonzo got a lot of offense in too, and because he was the heel. So, heels have to get the heat.
Yeah.
The problem is when a heel gets the heat, the babyface is supposed to be in peril. And so for Odinson, that doesn't necessarily look good. It's one thing when they did it in tag teams, like with the Road Warriors, where you could put one of the Road Warriors in peril for a while through the cheating of the Midnight Express and Jim Cornette or, whoever. But in a singles match, it doesn't work as well. And I don't know. Again, not a bad match. I just was left confused by it.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get to the pay-per-view because we still need to get to Power too, so we got to kind of go through this a little bit quicker. The first matchup was a Singapore cane match. Thom Latimer defeating Fodder. This matchup, I don't need canes in wrestling. I think that's such a tired trope. I think that was done to death in ECW, and I don't think we need to see any more of it. And there was a couple of times where Tom was just like, I don't want the cane. I just want to wrestle. And you could see him really take out his frustration on Fodder. Oddly enough, I'm the only one that got this one right. I said Tom was going to win this match. And both you and Jaden DKM said that Fodder was going to win. So Fodder made his debut, in-ring debut against Thom Latimer, pay-per-view debut against Thom Latimer, and he got his ass handed to him. What did you think about this match?
I can keep this one short. The match was just I mean, it wasn't bad, but
Sure.
it was. And whoever I predicted, the right person won.
You predicted fodder.
Yeah, I'm just saying, it doesn't matter who I predicted. The right
Gotcha.
guy won.
Gotcha. Jaden, did you see this one, or you didn't get to see this one?
No, I only really saw the women's match because it just happened to show up on YouTube, and I just clicked on it, wondering what it was. So I actually think I was looking for the NWA Power, and I found it by accident.
Yeah.
But I'm glad Latimer won. I guess it's Wishley Richards really just doesn't do anything for me. And I just glad Latimer won. I'm glad it was kind of short too. Canes were stupid. They're going to do Canes. They need to bring back Mr. Fuji.
Don't kill Jay.
You might. All right, let's get back to some more of the fantastic results from the Nuff Said pay-per-view. Next up, the second match of the night was the junior heavyweight title match. We all correctly voted that Morton was going to win this, but Taylor kind of, I don't know, man. Taylor, every time I see that kid, he looks better and better to me, and I kind of wish he would have won. I don't want to insult Kerry Morton based on his physique alone, but when you look at Alex Taylor, he looks like a wrestler. He's obviously conditioning himself. He's weight training. He's chiseled. He's a junior heavyweight. He's never going to be, 250 pounds. He doesn't need to be. And ever since the 74th anniversary pay-per-view, I really felt like he's stepped it up a notch. And I kind of wish Taylor would have won this match, but Kerry won it. Jaden, what do you think about Kerry Morton as the World Junior Heavyweight Champion?
I know you guys aren't high on him. I am not as critical of him as you guys are. I still see something. I just don't think he hit it yet.
I agree with you, by the way. I agree with that. I don't think he's reached his potential, but I think they also went too fast to put the belt on him.
Well, that's because he's a Morton. That's the only reason that's going to happen. If his last name was Mercer or Kaylee, I don't think that would have happened.
But Kaylee's a jobber name.
But I guess I really even see the match. I can't get any real opinion on it. I think Kerry Morton just needs to turn heel and turn on his father and put him out of wrestling. That might make us interested.
Well, like if you ever, and I was just asking about Kerry as a wrestler, not because I know you didn't see the match, but like I see the promos that he's putting on Twitter and how he's so unlikable, but not being a bad guy. And I think there is a definitely like a spot for him for that. And I know it's getting heel heat with GCW fans. And I think NWA fans could turn on him too. And we'll talk more about that on Power. But I really feel like if he leaned into more of a heel gimmick, I think he would be much better served. Also, he was announced that he'll be in Mexico, so that's interesting. DK, what did you think of this match?
To something you said, which I found interesting, because I noticed it so right away, was the difference in their look, to the point where if you went up to the average person who would know nothing about who's currently wrestling in WWE, let alone NWA, and you just said, okay, here's their junior heavyweight champion, 225 and under, or here are two guys that are going to wrestle for the NWA World Junior Heavyweight Championship, 225 and under. Who's the champion? I'm telling you, all of them would have picked Taylor. He looks like a wrestler. And at one point, Kerry Morton looked like he was getting into some better shape, but a little bit like Tyrus, it looked like he's fallen off the wagon and kind of gone back to not hitting the weights as much or something.
Maybe with all that championship money, he's getting all the good food, and he's not working it off.
I mean, look, if the world was just, Alex Taylor would have been built for this.
Yeah.
Alex Taylor would have been out getting enhancement wins and maybe a tag team victory win over Kerry and, something like that, to where you'd want to see him and believe that you would see him win the title. The match was better than I expected it to be, and it was better strictly on the fact that Taylor was better than I expected him to be. And so I'm not going to criticize the match itself, but I'm sorry, Kerry Morton doesn't do it for me. And I don't have the faith that you and Jaden seem to have that, he'll hit a stride or he'll be better. I think you could Dominic Mysterio him. Which is like we talked about, turning him heel and stuff like that and kind of making him the chicken shit. And then I think he could be the type of heel that Tully Blanchard type of heel where you would pay money just to see him get beat up. You don't really care whether he wins or loses the match. All of Tully Blanchard's feud with Ronnie Garvin. All that matters is at the end, Ronnie Garvin beat up Tully Blanchard. It didn't matter which one of them won the match. In the end, Ronnie Garvin beat up Tully Blanchard, and that's what you paid your money for.
Right.
All right. So what happened next?
So next we have the Thrillbilly Silas match versus Kratos. And man, you knew this was going to be a hoss fight, but I don't think any of us could predict how much blood would have been spilled in that ring. It was a little unsightly, to be quite honest with you. And as the crimson dripped down the face of Kratos after his head bouncing off that exposed turnbuckle, I mean, I think the scariest part was when he lifted his head up off the mat and there was just this giant circle of blood and it continued to just drip out of his head. I mean, the match itself was pretty excellent. I enjoyed the heck out of it, but that seeing so much blood, it was kind of almost like a cringe moment for me. It got really, really like unsavory. Is that the right word I'm looking for? But we went to predict this match, and I don't know that I don't think we made predictions on this one.
I don't think the Thrillbilly.
I think I would have voted for Thrillbilly too, but we didn't make predictions on that match. It's the one we missed.
Well, I would have predicted Thrillbilly, but
what did you think of the match, DK?
It was mostly good. There wasn't a show stealer on the pay-per-view, but this one probably came the closest. And I have heard that the end was not the planned end.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the planned end was. I've just heard that wasn't it. And I don't really know. Okay. See, I missed the shot. I wasn't really sure what happened that he was cut that way. If he legitimately busted it hard way or if he gigged. I kind of thought he probably gigged because of how much blood there was. It's like, you hit an artery like that. And the head bleeds a lot, people. And I've had my head busted open twice. And I got the scars to prove it. And, it was like both exciting and a little bit freaky. And a little bit disgusting when Silas Mason started doing it. And they had to, they legit kept the camera off the ring so they could clean it.
So,
but he tasted the blood. I was like, oh God, no, don't do that.
Yeah, in this day and age, that's a dangerous thing to do, unless you already have all the diseases.
And I get why he did it too, and like the whole rubbing the blood on his face, but it just, in a world after COVID, like everything, I'm slowly becoming a germaphobe, and I'm not accusing Kratos of having a wild lifestyle, anyways, but I was crawling. It was too much for me.
Yeah, it was a bit much, but hey, it adds to the thrillbilly being the thrillbilly. Even Boyle looked a little disturbed by it.
Mandy, our new friend Mandy, said she loved the thrillbilly match. It was great. It was a great match, and that's, I think, one of the best parts about the show is like you had these two big dudes. The only thing I didn't like about the match was the announcers kept calling it a rubber match. I'm like, no, they're not fighting for any particular reason. Quit calling it a rubber match. It's not a series. It's, if we would have went into it saying it was a best of 3 or a best of 7 series.
Well, it was a rubber match between them.
The third match is always considered the rubber match.
Right.
If it's 1-1.
But my favorite part was that Tim Storm didn't know what a rubber match was. Because he thought there were stipulations that were supposed to be in there. And they're like, no, it's just the third meeting. So
a winner, hand them both a piece of rubber, let them beat themselves with it.
Yeah,
if Kratos would have won, they would have put Billy Corgan in a rubber room. That's what it was.
Probably.
So now, unfortunately, our favorite won, and now we have to deal with Billy Corgan.
Speaking of Poyo and Thrillbilly, specifically Poyo will be joining us next week as a member of the Alliance guys. We'll be interviewing Poyo as well as talking to Poyo about Power. So make sure you're here next week early at the start time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific, because Poyo will be in the house with us.
I hope that's a good episode of Power then.
If it's not, but you know what though, and that's the thing that I admire about Poyo so much, that Poyo can agree to disagree, and Poyo can say, okay, well that's your opinion, but here's what we were efforting, and this is why I love what we're doing, because we're trying to do this, this, and this. Even if it didn't connect with you, that's what we were trying to do. But
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Did it surprise you to learn that Thrillbilly didn't already have an NWA contract?
No, because I don't think, I honestly believe maybe a third of the roster is technically under contract. I don't think everyone that's appearing has a contract. I
don't expect most people to have a contract, but for some reason when they showed them signing, it's like, really? You hadn't already signed up this?
Well, what's interesting though is like when Thrillbilly, so JR Kratos, wrestles for New Japan Strong. He does a lot of SoCal or Northern California independence as well. He works with our friends over at Pro Wrestling Revolution as part of La Migra. But when I look at him, I understand why he's probably not locked down to the NWA, because he's making his name everywhere. But I've never even heard of Thrillbilly until he showed up in the NWA with Poyo. And I did a little bit of research and learned a little bit about him, but I had no idea who he was. Yeah, you would think that he would be locked up to the NWA. You would have thought that he would have been one of the first names that they would have locked up. I'm glad he is under contract because, again, I think he's a guy that's got so much upside for the NWA. I was just looking back, too, at some of the pictures that I took from New Orleans, when we were there in Chamelais, New Orleans, Chamelais, Louisiana, for the Hard Times pay-per-view. And he's changed his body so much in such a short amount of time. I mean, we're talking November to February, and he looks great. The work that he's putting in on his physical body, I mean, that guy looks great. And, his Polka Dot Pam's correcting me, Chalmette. Okay. Sorry, I'm not from Nolans. I don't. But yeah, Chalmette. He looks great. The transformation he's put into himself. His promos are money. He looks money. He's got Poyle by his side. I mean, the sky's the limit with that guy.
So what was the next match?
All right, well, there we go. Next match. Let me look here. I lost my notes.
Twins.
What's that? The Renegade Twins. Yes, the Renegade Twins, Charlotte Renegade and Robin Renegade defeat Pretty Empowered. Now, I kind of thought there would be a lot more chicanery in this match. Ella Envy took a lot of the heat in this match. I like both of these tag teams a lot. You know, DK, I'm a huge Ella Envy fan. But she seems to take the brunt of the punishment when Pretty Empowered are in the ring. But I think Renegade Twins are looking very good as tag team champions. They earned that victory. They looked good. I wish they would have had more build up to this match, but I'm okay with how it came across. It wasn't the best match of the night. Probably wasn't even the second best match of the night, but it was a good, solid tag team match, a good victory for the Renegade Twins. And just for those who keep it score at home, DKM and I both thought that Pretty Empowered would hold on to those belts. Jaden predicted that the Renegade Twins would win the belts. Jaden, what do you think about that?
I just think it was time. It seemed right, and it seemed like the writing was on the wall that was going to happen. And I have a feeling they're just trying to get associated with the Nightmare Factory as another source of talent. So I think that's why they did something like that.
That sounds very possible. We know that not only are they Nightmare school talents, but they also spent some time at Mission Pro with that's Thunder Rosa's promotion, where Genocide. That's kind of where we were introduced to Genocide and a couple of the other talents that are in the NWA currently. So yeah, I mean it was pretty a pretty good match. DK, what did you think about it?
Yeah, it was good. It wasn't blow away. It was a little bit sloppy, but it was a good match. I don't have a problem with them putting the titles on the Renegade Twins. Again, I thought if you actually did some long-term booking and thinking that it would be a better story not to switch the titles right now, but do a little more of like they did with Nick Aldis and Trevor Murdoch. But I don't have a problem that they put the titles on them. But as twins, they fit a tag team look and mold very well. I just wish there were some more serious challengers that, we could do. I have this insane fear that they're just going to flop the titles back on Pretty Empowered right away, so that when they split up, they'll split up as champions or something to that effect. We all know Billy hates tag teams, despite the fact that he's using all these tag team titles.
In the chat, Renegade Twins will be defending at Ladies Night Out also.
What's Ladies Night Out?
That's a oh gosh, I can't remember what the promotion is. I think it has something to do with the Title Match Network. Jaden, do you know a little bit about them?
I don't really, honestly. I don't know much about them. I used to think it was the one with Maria, but actually I don't think that's right anymore.
No, Maria is like WWA, like the Wrestling Women's Army or something like that. I do know that Camille, Ella Envy, and Kenzie Page were all scheduled to be a part of that event, that Ladies Night Out. And again, it's like I'll look it up here for a minute. I will look it up over here on Twitter and give you an answer. But basically, they're doing like a 3-night event, and let me see if I can pull it up here. Dang it. While I'm stalling, talk about something. Okay, it's Title Match Network presents Ladies Night Out. It's a triple shot. It's also in conjunction with AML. It'll be in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and all 3 of the pay-per-views will be available on Title Match Network. and that'll be like February the 24th. And like I said, Camille will be defending. The Renegade Twins will be defending their titles, and I think, and I know Ella Envy and Kenzie Page were originally booked for that event as well, so I think they'll be defending or wrestling on that show as well. Okay, the next match on our list of the pay-per-view, we get to EC3 and Kevin Kiley Jr. Now, I had no idea what to expect with Kevin Kiley. I did not see his one and only match late last year, teaming with Tyrus at Creative Pro Wrestling. I kind of thought we would get a energized Kevin Kiley. You know, he had such a good start in his WWE career as Alex Riley. Obviously, it didn't come to fruition, I think, what everyone had anticipated for him. I was expecting to see somebody more akin to that. What I saw in the ring reminded me very much of the Ravens Flock and Sick Boy. I felt like he didn't really belong in that ring. Now, I know they're probably working some sort of gimmick, you know, and maybe EC3 will help him revive his career. But this was, it was kind of at points hard to watch, especially when he went for that dive to the outside, which I don't think he intentionally meant to miss EC3 completely and landing on his upper body. But luckily he was able to finish the match with that insane dive that completely hit nothing but concrete. I don't know. I didn't feel like this was a good use of EC3's time, effort, and energy. I didn't think this was a good way to bring back Kevin Kiley. I'm hoping that they do something with it. I hope they're able to revitalize Kevin Kiley, but I just thought this was in poor taste. What did you think, DKM?
It was a bad match. Whether it's real ring rust or storyline ring rust or whatever, Kiley not look like he should be in the ring.
I did hear some people. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I did hear some people say he looked drunk, but I'm positive they would not have let him in that ring if he was intoxicated.
I didn't think drunk. I just didn't think all there.
Yeah.
And it just, he didn't look right. He didn't sound right. I don't know if it was a cover that they came up with, but, commentary was saying, did EC3 just bring him in to get guarantee himself a victory over a guy that's been out of the sport for 6 years, blah, blah, blah. It's like, God, that would be a terrible story to be telling. But it was almost like, he wasn't even in wrestling gear. Was he? I mean, am I remembering that correctly?
Say it again.
Was he in wrestling gear?
No, I mean he might have been wearing like knee pads, but he was wearing a t-shirt and it looked like jeans, right?
Right, and like tennis shoes, and he had something on his elbows.
And before he attempted the dive, he pulled off his shirt, right? And there was, look, I'm not saying everyone has to be a body guy, right? He didn't look bad without his shirt on. I mean, he didn't look like a slob or anything, but I mean, he didn't look like he did in the WWE. But when he took his shirt off, I mean, he could have came out to the ring looking like that, and I don't think anyone would have been like, "Oh my God, what happened?" But wearing the shirt was it kind of just added to the whole kind of I don't know, maybe it's a gimmick.
And I guess that's where it was. I mean, whatever it was supposed to be, it was bad. But I don't know if it was intentional or not.
Yeah.
And EC3 started talking again. At least this time he didn't get the microphone when he was talking. But when he starts talking, it's just, get up and go take a leak time or something. Just nothing there was nothing enjoyable about this. There was nothing that made me go, ooh. There was nothing that helped get EC3 over. Certainly, Kylie did not get over. And I don't know. It was bad. I'll leave it at that.
Did you see any of this, Jaden? Did you see any of the match at all?
I have not, but wrestling is not something that you can really take a long period of time off and get right back into. And he probably didn't tuck his chin. That happens to a lot of people who don't properly prepare to come back, who used to wrestle, who don't prepare to come back. You can do a lot of the other stuff with muscle memory and a little practice. You can get back to being good at it. But remembering to tuck your chin on a bump is paramount, and a lot of people don't. They end up knocking themselves loopy.
And one thing I will, I'll say this, that I this is what I conveyed, or what I received from the match. When he did take that nasty bump, it looked like EC3 checked on him. He looked very professional in that. Like, they tried to hide it, but he obviously went down to check that he was okay. And, you know, they could have ended the match right there. They could have thrown up the X. I'll give Kylie the credit that he was able to finish the match. And again, it wasn't a great match, but he was able to get in there and finish it. And I, you know, kind of give him some props for that. Well, let's go to the next matchup of the night, and that was La Rebellion versus Blunt Force Trauma, Carnage and Damage with Aaron Stevens. Now, I'm a huge La Rebellion fan. I've traveled to TJ to see these guys wrestle. Mecca Wolf, Bastia. I think it's a great gimmick. I think it's a great tag team. Without just a few hiccups, they've been mostly undefeated in the NWA. They did lose those titles to the Commonwealth Connection. I was going to call them Kings, but I knew that wasn't right. To the Commonwealth Connection, only to regain them by defeating Hawkari after Harry Smith wasn't able to compete at the 74th anniversary show. Outside of that, they've been damn near perfect. I mean, they've looked really good in that ring. They've stepped in the ring with the Briscoes. They stepped in the ring with a lot of great talent. Of course, we saw them retain those titles in Chalmette, Polka Dot Pam Chalmette. So it was cool to see them be there to defend the tag titles, because this match wasn't even really announced, and there was absolutely zero build for it, which that really, I think, is the biggest sin here, because I think you have something really special with Carnage and Damage. I think Aaron Stevens is a great mouthpiece for these two. I think that trio could have a lot of fun in the NWA. I think that tag team could be a lot of fun, but I felt this match really deserved a lot more build than it got. It started off as a fun match, and I would have liked to seen it come to a conclusion without Stevens getting involved, causing the disqualification. I don't think this will be the last time we see La Rebellion versus Blunt Force Trauma, but I thought it was a good match. As far as our predictions go, for those of you who are keeping score at home, Jaden thought Blunt Force Trauma were going to win, and DK and myself believe that that La Rebellion would retain. DKM, thoughts on this one?
Boy, this is difficult because it was a good match, but I hated the ending. And so this probably would have been my match of the night if it had ended better. I don't even necessarily mind there was a disqualification. I just kind of hated how it happened when it happened. It was almost like, ooh, hey, look at the time, people. We need to end this match. Stevens, get in there.
That might have been, honestly.
It was only 6 minutes. It was only a 6-minute match. And, all of a sudden Stevens is in there, and you're just like going, wait a minute, I'm kind of getting into this. So, interesting thing, almost all the matches were short. There was only one that went over 15 minutes, and I think like only three or four that went over 10.
I
So
think there was a total of 14 matches from start to finish, including the pre-show. That's not accounting for any dark matches, but I like that. That's a lot of wrestling to pack into 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah, and I don't really remember what time it ended. I mean, I don't remember thinking it was super late, but I don't remember thinking it was like, oh, that's early, either. So, but then again, looking at some of the matches may not be a, big surprise.
Boy, there must have been a lot of dark matches then.
But yeah, a good match ruined by a bad ending. It happens in wrestling. What was the next match?
The next match, oops, not that one. This one. The next match was Polka Dot Pam's match of the night. Chris Adonis and Trevor Murdoch rekindling that feud that started almost, was it 2 years ago, over the national title when the NWA returned. I can remember it like it was yesterday. Strictly Business and Chris Adonis literally goads Trevor Murdoch into a match that he should not have ever accepted. He had a neck brace on, DKM. He had a neck brace on and said, yes, I'll wrestle Chris Adonis. I don't care if I'm hurt, and then lost the title. It was the most dumbest Trevor Murdoch had ever looked in an NWA ring. Chris Adonis would go on to have a second reign as champion, having forfeited the title. But that feud reignited during the Champions Series when both of them got into it during the team Tyrus versus Team Rock and Roll match. Of course, Rock and Roll would win. So our boy Chris Adonis, Pam's boy Chris Adonis, has a shot at the 10 pounds of gold at some point in the near future. But I thought this was a really good match. This was the match they should have had 2 years ago, where Trevor Murdoch and Chris Adonis looked like they were out there to kill each other. And it was, I think it was a lot of fun. What did you think about this one?
It's weird in that I'm almost going to compare it to the last one in that I like the match better than I like the ending. And here's my problem with the ending. Murdoch basically kicks Adonis's ass most of the match. And not only does he kick his ass most of the match, he really works over the shoulder, which commentary puts over as he's doing everything he can so that Adonis can't lock in
the
master lock, which is, I don't know if that's what he still calls it there or not.
He does.
Yeah, I thought so, but I didn't know. And so it was like, so Murdoch is kicking his ass, beating that shoulder up, injuring it severely. And then Adonis sidesteps far too long to execute Flying Bulldog, puts him in the full Nelson with only the slightest bit of struggle. Once he gets it in, shoulder was never injured. Doesn't even go back selling it after the match. Puts it in, and Murdoch passes out. And it's just like, okay. And so you kind of end up in one of the situations of, well, who looked good? Murdoch kicked Adonis's ass. He didn't look good. Murdoch lost to a guy with a hold that he shouldn't have been able to put on because of the way Murdoch had injured his shoulder.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Nice hoss fight. Yeah, no, it doesn't work that way. It was a nice hoss fight. I enjoyed the actual match. I actually enjoyed Murdoch kicking his ass. So, because I'm a big Murdoch fan. But yeah, I don't mind that Trevor lost per se. I just don't. Maybe. I just didn't think it was a well thought out. Yes, I'm grumpy tonight. You know that.
I do want to point out that we were all wrong on this one. Pam, don't turn off the channel, please. We all said that Murdoch was going to win this one, but really Adonis won. And I think this is, and I'm not trying to just keep Pam on the channel here. I think this is an indication of what they are looking at with Adonis. And a victory over a former world's champion is a victory over a former world's champion. Storyline wise, I think that starts putting him into at least discussion about being a contender for that 10 pounds of gold. Plus, he's got that the Champion Series cash in too. So, I mean, that's something to consider.
Sure. That's the whole purpose. Whole purpose of the cash in, though, is that you don't necessarily need it. Need to be. All right. So, who was next?
Okay, so the next match we have is then that leads us to the women's match. No disqualification. Now, we all predicted that Camille was going to win this match. We all knew that. I don't think a single person in the audience thought Camille was going to lose this match, despite our pal Big Chris Dog saying how much Camille needs to lose the title. This match was not the time for her to lose the title. In fact, I just felt like she looked even better as a champion. They tried to paint the accolades of Angelina Love as being a former Impact Women's Champion, knockout champion, but that was then and this is now. And right now, Camille is just a step above everybody in the NWA, and I mean everybody in the NWA. I sang her praises earlier. I swear to God, this isn't a Camille a stand page, but each time I talk about her, I'm more impressed. You put her in the ring, and she fights someone like Layla Hirsch, and Layla Hirsch is considered a technical wrestler, a mat wrestler, and she beats him. You put her in the ring with somebody like Chelsea Green, who's a finesse wrestler, she beats him. You put her in the ring with somebody like Taya Valkyrie, who is like a 5-tool athlete, she beats her. And it just keeps happening. You put her in the ring with somebody bigger than her, she beats them. You put her in the ring with someone faster than her, she beats them. You put someone in the ring with her like Kylan King, who's almost like a double for her, and she beats them. And the fact of the matter is that she's been training, she's getting better. Her schedule is, like I said, she just defended the title last night. Gosh, what more can you say about Camille? This match was brutal. It was violent. Like we mentioned earlier, that coast to coast was something of beauty. I'm not usually into hardcore wrestling, but this was a fun match. I never thought at once that was Angelina going to win it, but it was a fun match. What did you think, DK?
Yeah, I'm going to add another word to what you're saying. Understanding the exhibition nature of pro wrestling. She beats him believably.
Okay, I like it.
And I'm going to throw that in, especially considering how I complained about, the victory in the last match. I didn't know that it was overly believable. Yeah, so she can wrestle anytime. She can go toe-to-toe with him. She looks believable to be in the ring with them, and then she's able to beat them in a believable way. And that's a strong thing to say about any champion. That's what you want to see. And so, I mean, look, none of us made any hit the fact that we weren't into the idea of Angelina Love wrestling for the title. Even in a no DQ match, nobody thought she was going to win. They did what they could to build it up. It wasn't going to work. The match was fine. Camille was impressive with that coast to coast. Right person won. What happened next?
Real quick, I want to, because our pal Tim is in the chat. I'm going to see Tim on March 25th out there in rustic Glassboro, New Jersey. I was at the Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiator event. But he says, Camilla's great, but give me Lindsay Stowe to finally take that title off the Brick House. That might be interesting. That might be compelling. Media M5 says, wouldn't mind seeing Santana Garrett returning to take Camille on. I think Santana Garrett, I could be wrong, but I think she's got some sort of deal with the WWE. Maybe not as an active wrestler, but maybe as a coach.
I don't remember.
But I'm not 100% on that. But we'll jump back into the results. And next up, we have the national title match where you have Scion, the son of Austin Idol, taking on Homicide. And this was the longest match of the night, and it felt like the longest match of the night, but it was brutal. And I do want to say this. I actually kind of enjoyed the match. I think Homicide really brought out a lot more in Scion than what we've seen in a while. I didn't really care for the mid-match apologize to my father stuff. I thought that was stupid. Like, come on, man. You know Homicide isn't going to apologize for anything he says. You know, he is who he is. He's not saying sorry to nothing or no one. And, I mean, it was a fun match. And, like, post-match, Scion had posted on social media about all the scrapes and bruises that he had on his body after the match. Homicide looked like he had taken some shots, too. It was a lot of fun match, but it did go on for quite some time. And even our friend Pam says it felt like it went on for eternity. And it was the longest match of the night. Media M5 says it's getting to be when Scion comes on. I kind of feel the same way too, but I enjoyed this match. It wasn't match of the night, but I think it was a pretty solid match. And as far as predictions go, I was the only one who predicted Homicide. You and both Jaden and DKM were predicted Scion. And it was a fun match. Thrillbilly just said Scion better enjoy that title while he can. I do believe that Scion isn't going to be able to throw Thrillbilly around the way he threw Homicide around. What did you think of the match, DK? Was it a good match?
I learned how to say Pollo de Mar instead of Thrillbilly.
Did I say Thrillbilly?
Yeah.
My bad. With all apologies, Pollo.
Look, I wanted Scion to win this match because I want to see Scion versus Thrillbilly. But this was one of those matches where the dynamic kind of changed during the match. This, again, that kind of heel face thing. It almost started with Homicide as the heel. And then Scion became the heel. And someone take this message back to Billy. During a match, the last person who should have a microphone is a wrestler. I don't need EC3 going out and grabbing microphones to talk during the middle of a match on a pay-per-view. I don't need Scion grabbing a microphone saying, apologize, you need to apologize. Especially when we all knew what was going to happen. It was a brutal match.
Was it a good match?
It wasn't a bad match, but
was it a good match?
If it had been shorter, it would have been.
Okay. Did you enjoy it? Or did you just were you like Pam and thought it just went too long?
I enjoyed the first 10 minutes.
Okay.
And probably if they had ended it in 12 minutes, I would have been fine.
Okay.
But it's amazing what 4 extra minutes or 4.5 extra minutes will do.
Tell that to my wife.
Well, your wife's never going to get 4 extra minutes. So, it was what it was. I could have enjoyed it. It went just a little too long for me. I mean, this is where I'll go back and say La Rebellion versus Blunt Force Trauma could have benefited by the extra 4 minutes.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree with that. I like the match. Like Pam said, like you said, it did go too long. And if we could have taken 4 minutes from this match and given it to Blunt Force Trauma versus La Rebellion, I think that would have been more happier faces. I still like this match, and I still like Scion a lot, and I still like Homicide a lot. But I like Scion as the underdog, and I don't need him as champion anymore. He did what he needed to do. He won the title. I heard someone say something like, they haven't done enough to make me care. I don't hate Scion, but I don't like Scion. And I think that's a huge crime right there. They haven't given you a reason to hate the guy. They haven't given you a reason to love the guy. And I think that's going to continue to be a problem until maybe they put him in the ring with somebody like Thrillbilly, who's going to force you to choose.
And I think since the day he got there, when he was brought in by William Patrick Corgan.
Don't ask me about my relationship with WPC.
And so, yeah, and again, he's kind of been that tweener floater. Is he a heel? Is he a face? We don't like him, so it's hard for him to be a face. But when he's a heel, we still don't like him. and it's just so weird because the guy actually has personality. And they
told him not to use it when he's wrestling in the NWA.
Yeah, and it's just like the guy has personality, but Scion doesn't. And it's just I don't know why you would pick that for somebody. But we have our moment. Scion versus Thrillbilly is a much better matchup than some of the others that could be out there for the national title. So it's one I want to see. It's one I think they need to book. It's one that needs to end with Thrillbilly taking the national title. And even if it's not the first match. But
oh, wow. Mandy pointed out something that I kind of forgot in what I was talking about, and you didn't mention it either. During the match, Homicide tried to take off Sion's mask. Did anyone care? No. Nobody cared. If his mask would have come off and we would have seen the man behind the mask, would you have cared?
Well, it's funny. She says we all know who he is. And I think there are a lot of people who don't know who he is if they haven't looked it up on the internet. But that would be the next problem. Is they would take the mask off and everybody would go,
who?
Because, originally it was built up as this mystery man.
Yeah.
And everybody, and I think that was one of the reasons why they dropped it and gave him a name, because it was something they couldn't do. You couldn't pull the mask off and it be, some name from MLW or ROH or NXT or something like that. It was just going to be, I don't know who that is. And the guy wrestles under, he's had probably more success under another mask gimmick.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, at this point, we don't care who he is. We wouldn't know who he was if he took the mask off. But that's kind of what I was talking about, the heel face dynamic. So, Homicide was going in trying to take the mask off, which is the heelish move.
Yeah.
And, Homicide's kind of played that heel. And we know Billy loves heel versus heel matches. And apparently he's about the only one that does. But I don't know. I don't get it. So we have one more match we have to talk about, unfortunately.
Yeah, that would be the world title match. And after watching the Super Bowl, you kind of knew why he was going to win. But, man, I don't know. I got to be honest. You and Jaden both said Tyrus was going to win the match. I thought Cardona was going to win, but via disqualification. You guys were right. Cardona does the job. And, again, that kind of fuels the rumors that maybe Cardona might be headed elsewhere. Look, this match was not as good as we've seen Tyrus his last two offerings on pay-per-view. Like his match against Trevor Murdoch at the 74th was actually fairly decent. His match against Trevor and Cardona at Hard Times 3 was a very impressive effort for a guy his size. I did not like this match. I even sent you a clip at one point where Tyrus goes to kick I said Trevor goes to kick Matt Cardona and doesn't even nowhere even close to connecting, and Cardona sells it, and it just ruined the whole match. Like that scene literally ruined the entire match for me. Do better, be better, get back in the gym, Tyrus. You were looking good. It's hard to defend a guy who you got to take the whole game serious. Yes, you're probably one of the best promo guys in the business at this point, but when you're in the ring and you look like a slower Andre the Giant, I mean, I don't know, man. What? I want to say that there were some good things about the match, but they were very far and few between. I mean, there were, the maybe the best thing about the match is when it was over, Bully Ray kind of came out, and maybe Bully Ray and Tyrus could have a decent match.
Maybe this is what I've learned is that Tyrus's best two matches, and he had a couple matches with the Pope, but his best two matches were with Trevor Murdoch.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what's Trevor Murdoch that made him be able to have a good match? Well, they were able to have that kind of Haas fight, where you weren't necessarily looking for who was the stronger, who was the bigger. I mean, they were just going to beat the snot out of each other.
You weren't looking for arm drags and Texas cloverleafs.
Right. And so if you look at somebody like Bully Ray, who's almost as stiff as Tyrus is, not quite, but almost, he's getting there. And by stiff, I don't mean work. I mean walking around. They could potentially be able to have, just kind of like a Haas battle if you keep it to 6 or 7 minutes. This match also went too long because it went about 14 minutes, I think. 13, 14.
13 minutes and 20 seconds.
All right. So, yeah, too long. There was a reason Brock Lesnar matches, go 6. Unless he's in with a small guy.
Yeah.
But when he's in with big guys, they go about 6 minutes. And the reason is because that's all you really need out of it. And so this one went a little bit too long. I think Cardona was too small to work convincing. Lou, you're stealing Willie's job. Anyway. I don't have anything good to say about the match other than Cardona didn't win, which I didn't want him to. And I didn't want Tyrus to win, but I didn't want Cardona to win more than I didn't want Tyrus to win. So it was that type of thing. But I want to hit something here at the end.
All right.
Tyrus says something about it. I don't remember if it was Power or earlier in this show, with May, where, they're going, the 1,500 people or whatever that don't like him, and there's all these people that do and everything. And then Bully Ray comes out and talks at the end to put Tyrus over and how, it doesn't matter what the criticisms are. People are criticizing blah, blah, this, blah, he's done it. He's amazing. If you have to work that hard to tell me that the guy's over or should be over or a top, you're telling me he's not. All right. Can we be honest about that? If you got to tell me how good he is, you're telling me he's not that good.
Yeah.
Because if he were that good, I would see it. And this was one of the issues we had with Nick Aldis, too. If you have to put down the people who are coming out and saying, Oh my gosh, this is a bad. And again, this is what I always say when trying to compare what you would do. Who else? You know, they go, oh, Tyrus, he's got the granddaddy of them all championship. But who else would put their title on Tyrus? Okay. Give me one other unheard of indie thing that would do it just for the publicity. You know,
Lou is on it tonight, man. If Tyrus is on top, God help whoever's on bottom.
Are Willie and Lou the same people and he's forgotten which account he's using?
Baby. Carlton says his promos is so good he doesn't need to wrestle a lot. The NWA champion must be able to wrestle with anyone. Aldous was great at it. Trevor Murdoch was very good, but Tyrannosaurus Rex, no.
And you know, I heard a lot of people, you know, you brought it up, a lot of people go, oh, you know, he was in a commercial with the 10 pounds of gold with 113 million people watching. And okay, first of all, it was on for 5 seconds. Second of all, you barely see the main plate. Third of all, if you didn't know what it was, if you didn't already know what that was, you wouldn't care.
Maybe.
I mean, you know, there may have been someone out there go, hey, is that a wrestling belt? What's that to? But if you didn't know it was the NWA World Championship, it wouldn't mean anything. I mean, it's not like they said it. He was also in chainmail armor.
Yeah.
I mean, are there people out there saying now, oh, man, chainmail, you know, that's going to start selling?
No, but okay. The only thing when everyone is competing for eyeballs, the 10 pounds of gold was shown on TV. Did everyone see it? No. Did some people see it? Yes. And I can only liken it to my own personal experience. When the UFC first started, and we're talking about the first maybe 10 UFCs, right? I watched every single one of them. And I loved it because it was so barbaric and they didn't have rules. And you would see like a skinny karate guy versus like this big fat dude, and you'd see the guy get laid out. It was wild, man. It was just crazy, crazy stuff. And I remember seeing a wrestler, and at the time I was in high school wrestling, and I see this guy who's a wrestler who's got a UFC title, another UFC title, and right in the center of it, the 10 pounds of gold, the belt that I fell in love with as a child, that I saw Ric Flair hold, and Kerry Von Erich, and Harley Race, and Terry Funk, and that belt had so much imagery and so much history that the minute I saw that, right afterwards, and we're talking like 1995, 1996, I jumped on my AOL and I started looking up.
Or are you dating yourself?
Oh, yeah. And I started looking up, what is the NWA? What's going on? And at that point, that's what caused all this, guys. That's why I started the blog. Obviously, it was many, many years later, but I started following. I was watching what Steve Corino was doing. I was watching Shinya Hashimoto. I was trying to find out about what was going on. I learned about Mike Rapata. You know, we would converge on the old NWA wrestling message boards and talk wrestling. That's how I met this guy. I don't know. But all that happened because I saw Dan Severn holding the 10 pounds of gold walking to the octagon. Now, am I calling Tyrus Dan Severn? No. Am I saying that him holding that title has the same effect as an MMA fighter holding that title? Absolutely not. What I'm saying is it gave people an opportunity to see a belt that they might have grown up with that they have since forgotten about. That's all.
I'll grant you that to a point.
Okay.
But a very small one. I will say that it's very different for Dan Severn. And I also watched UFC back then. And, you know, they talked about Dan Severn being the NWA World Champion. I mean, that was brought up.
Yeah.
That belt was the belt wasn't a 3-second thing of a guy in armor.
No, and you're right.
the belt was on a guy that was a legit champion, in MMA, and you're like, oh wow. So,
but I think had I seen the belt then, only for a matter of seconds, I would have at least been interested to see what was going on. Plus, back then, that was the infancy of the internet, so everyone it was limited to what you could even look up. You had to connect to AOL to get on the internet back in the day, unless you use like Prodigy or something. Anyways,
that was me.
That was you. You were a Prodigy guy. All right, so that's it. Overall grade for the pay-per-view, I'm going to give it a B+.
I'm going to give it a solid B.
All right. And then just for, again, you guys keeping score at home, the champion of predicting the pay-per-view was the guy that has watched the least amount of NWA in the group, Jaden. Jaden had 7 correct predictions. DKM had, Jaden had 9 correct predictions. DKM had 8 correct predictions, and I had 6 correct predictions. So there it is.
Wow.
Now, let's go. What's that?
I'd be embarrassed
that I only got 6 right.
Yeah.
I mean, look, man, I was going with my heart. I wanted Homicide to win. All right, let's get to the television show, if you will. I'm going to try to go fast. I won't go into so much detail because we are up against the clock. The opening segment was Tyrus, just like you said, trolling the internet fans, trolling the internet wrestling community. I think the phrase was, that all 5,000 of those internet fans can't leave the house without their mom driving them. The promo was strong, man, until we got Aaron Stevens and Rolando Freeman entering the picture. At that point, all the wind from the sails were gone. I like a Tyrus promo. I think he's really, really good on the mic. I don't need to see Aaron Stevens try to interrupt him. I think Stevens could be built up as a guy that could be a potential challenger, but not as a cold returning guy. I mean, he needs to get out there and get some victories. And Rolando Freeman, I could do without for the rest of my life. And that comes even further when we get to the main event tonight. What did you think about this segment, DK?
Yeah, it was all right. I mean, I didn't hate it. Didn't love it, but didn't hate it.
All right, I just want to say goodbye to Pam. Pam, thanks for stepping in, checking us out. I hope you'll be here next week when we talk to Pollo. I've seen you at shows. Next time I see you, it'll probably be the 75th, unless you're going to Mexico City, and I'll see you there. I'm just saying she might because she's a huge Smashing Pumpkins fan too, I think. All right. So then, I just lost my screen. Are we still there? We're still on? Okay. Next up, we have Jordan Clearwater defending his television championship. Oh, Pam. All right, I'm going to touch base with you offline, Pam. I'll message you on Twitter or something. There's a lot of wrestling going on that weekend if you're going to be out there. But I'll touch base with you later. We have Jordan Clearwater defending his title in an open challenge. Thom Latimer accepts that open challenge. This was a huge mistake on the part of Idolmania Sports Management. Austin Idol really screwed the pooch on this one. The 6:05 time limit has got to go in these TV title matches. It's such a waste because the champion knows that he can stall, and get a victory. We've seen it multiple times. Clearwater tried to do it again this time, but Latimer wouldn't let it happen. It was a good match. I would have liked to see these guys go a little bit longer than that 6 minutes because I think it could have been really, really special. But it was a good victory for Thom Latimer. I don't think this is the end of Jordan Clearwater being a champion in the NWA. I don't think this is the end of Jordan Clearwater at all. I think Idolmania is in trouble, though. I think it's definitely fractured. Thoughts on the match?
I guess it was okay. I don't like the Hulk Hogan no sell.
You don't like the what?
Hulk Hogan no sell.
Oh, yeah. I don't care for that either.
I mean, there at the end when it was one thing when he was kind of hitting him on the back and he wasn't reacting. And of course, when Hogan did it, he would, be pumping up and getting energetic and drawing on the power or whatever. Latimer was just kind of like moving around. You're starting to annoy me now, dude. you know.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you turn around, you're just taking those punches and you're just staring at them. I'm sitting there thinking of Bruiser Brody versus Lex Luger and the famous cage match, shoot, whatever. And I'm glad they put a title on Latimer, and they seem to be, because we want them to do something with him.
Yeah.
And I kind of hate that it came at the expense of Clearwater, but, you know, let's see what they do. And I was happy to see that they maybe have finally gotten their own belt, because that was a new belt that they had.
I'll say this. I see Thom Latimer with that belt, and I'm not trying to take anything away from any other champion before or any other champion that comes after, but god damn does he look like a champion. You know what I mean? Like you put that guy in any wrestling promotion on the planet today, and he looks like he belongs. And that's not an insult to Jordan Clearwater or to Pope, maybe to Tyrus, but god damn, he looks like a champion. I don't know. I was just again, I'm not even a huge body guy, but Thom Latimer just looks the part. He looks like a guy who wrestles for a living. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'll quit making sweet love to Thom Latimer. Next up, we have the Chicago pay-per-view announcement and the women's TV title. We talked about that earlier. Mixed bags with the title, women's TV title. I think it's really cool that they're going back to Chicago. It's not Ric Flair, Rick Steamboat, but I'm sure they'll put up some good matches, and we'll have some things to talk about in the coming months. But what's really interesting is how fast and how like crazy the next 2 months are going to be, because it looks like March they will just be the Mexico City show, but then they go into April, and not only do you have this pay-per-view on the Friday before Easter, but then they're going to Australia the same month for a couple of different shows. So it's going to be very, very busy for the NWA, which is all good things, man. I think that's great. But yeah, that's all I have on that. You have anything you want to add to that?
I had to look up the area code 312 to make sure it was in Chicago, so the pay-per-view name would make sense to me. Yeah, they talked about the new women's title. I was kind of hoping they would forget about it after Mickey left, but, you know, maybe they'll have some good out of it.
All right. Next up, we have La Rosa Negra, who was victorious at the pay-per-view, taking on Angelina Love, who had lost at the pay-per-view. And again, I really feel like we're seeing the next TV champion right here in La Rosa Negra. They're building her up the right way. She's getting victories over some more established talent in the NWA. At the pay-per-view, she beat Misa Kate. Now she's beating a former Impact champion in Angelina Love. Literally, she was in a world title match just a few days, actually the day before. It was a really good back and forth match. Yeah, victory for La Rosa Negra. Thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it was a good match. Fodder got kicked out early, so I was happy with that.
He's not a manager.
He's annoying. And so La Rosa Negra won. And so the question is, if we set the TV title aside, could she be someone who could eventually be a contender for Camille?
I don't think so. Because if you're going to go with somebody smaller, there got to be like a more of a chicken.
I didn't say win, beat her for the title. I said contender.
Okay, sure, yeah. If there's no TV title, sure, you could throw her in the ring with Camille. But again, it's like, what's the point? She's just going to go out and get destroyed. Am I wrong?
I don't know.
I
mean, she's been around a while. She's a good talent.
She's a hell of a talent, and it's almost surprising that she wasn't signed by like AEW or something. You know,
You know, and some people have pointed out that Camille probably shouldn't lose to a big person. Camille should probably lose to a smaller person.
Yeah.
And that kind of Tyler Wilde thing, which, by the way, flipping channels the other night, I finally saw her witch gimmick. And it's stupid. And why I don't watch Impact.
I would be happy if Taylor decided to make NWA a part of her wrestling.
Yeah, without the gimmick. I don't know. I think she's someone who could, you know, Thunder Rosa was hardly a big person, and she certainly, you know, could be convincing against Camille. So,
yeah, and no, and you're speaking truth for sure, 100%. But I just feel like they've been there, done that, you know, especially like they did it with Thunder Rosa, they did it with Layla Hirsch, they did it with to a lesser extent like Natalia Markova. I just don't know that. I don't know if that makes sense at this point, but you know, I'm not booking. So I don't know.
If it doesn't make sense, I'll do it. But if you don't want it to happen, you better start saying it makes sense.
Well, I think she should be the TV champion, but that's just me.
What's the next thing that happened?
The next thing that happened is we have May in the back with Thrillabilly and Scion. This was kind of weird because like Scion looks like he's getting punked. Like, I don't know if you ever remember being on, you know, in your middle school or junior high, and the bully would come by and say something, and you don't make eye contact and hope to God that they leave you alone. That's what I kind of felt was going on here. Like, Thrillabilly was like, you know, get your mama out the field and your daddy out the kitchen. And Scion just was no selling it. He looked like he was worried, and I don't think there is competition for me, in the most boringest, monotone, terrible gimmick voice ever. I don't know, man. This looks stupid to me. I want the match, but can we get a better build-up than this one?
This segment told you all the reasons why Thrillabilly should be champion, and all the reasons why Scion should drop the title.
Should go away.
Yeah, I mean, he's done a good job of defending the title elsewhere and things like that.
He started to,
and then he's kind of faded on that, and now it's just he's just kind of a dry personality. And
there was a talk that he was social media, so who knows how true this is, but he was trying to talk to All Japan Pro Wrestling about taking the national title to Japan and having a title defense. Now, if he was able to pull that shit off, like, I would have a different sentence right now. I would be telling you how great he is. But the external title defenses have dropped. His internal title defenses inside the NWA have been not a whole lot since the Champion Series. He hasn't had these breakthrough matches that I think he needs to have. You know, with Thrillabilly's out there beating Kratos in a big old Haas fight, and you've got Homicide, a former junior heavyweight, wrestling your current national champion and not looking great. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just, you know, sometimes a person's time runs out, and I kind of feel like his time has run out. That, you know, it's time to, if you want to keep the guy, it's time to refresh him.
Poyo said his stock is dropping. And I imagine that's because Scion is there trying to take the title from him.
Yeah, well, Thrillabilly.
Well, that's, but also, like, you know, the manifestation that Thrillabilly gave, I think it was at the live television taping, where he says, look, I'm going to beat Scion for that national championship, and then at the 71st or 75th, you know, Tyrus, it's going to be you and me, buddy. And it's like, yeah, you know what, you're right. Hell yeah, it's going to be that matchup, because why wouldn't it be? That dude's the Thrillabilly. And you had Poyo right there who was mouthing it was so great. So good. All right.
I mean, really, when you watch this interaction, when you come away from it, isn't your attitude, and maybe this was the purpose, but wasn't your thing like, yeah, I really want to see Thrillbilly kick his ass. Thrillbilly talks in a way that I want to see him kick Sion's ass and take that title from him. Did me. I mean, that was my moment of excitement for the show. And then Sion started to talk. But, my moment of excitement is I wanted to see Thrillbilly can cut the promo.
I think our buddy James is being facetious here. He goes, Thrillbilly's kind of okay.
Kind of, yeah.
All right. Let's
What
get
else
to the
happened?
next one because we're trying to get out of here. Next up, you get the tag team match with the Mortons versus La Rebellion. Now, this is where I started talking about how I think Kerry Morton is getting ready to take that next step. He's getting ready to evolve into a chicken shit heel, and I don't know how they're going to pull this off and still keep Ricky on camera because Ricky cannot have a heel son. At least he can't be exposed for having a heel son. It very much reminds me of the whole Sting and Lex Luger thing where when Sting and Luger were the WCW tag team champions and Luger was actively wrestling as a heel and Sting was the baby of all baby faces and Luger would be a heel to the crowd, and when Sting turned around he'd start high-fiving the kids in the audience, and when Sting turned back around Luger was just like apathetic towards the crowd. I feel like that's where they're heading with Kerry, and I hope that's where they go because I think it's awesome.
They actually did that gimmick a couple times, and the second time, which was during the big NWO thing, everybody was waiting for Luger to turn on Sting.
Yeah.
And they never pulled that trigger. Instead, Luger stayed on WC's W side for the versus NWO, which I always felt was right. I always felt like the biggest mistake they made with Scott Steiner was they had projected Scott Steiner's heel turn so blatantly. I always felt like they should have turned Rick, because I think that would have been a swerve worth having.
Yeah.
Since we need to wrap this up pretty damn.
Yeah. Let me just finish.
Let's just say I'd never want to see Ricky Morton wrestle again. Jerry Lawler just had a stroke, and he's not that much older than Ricky, and he's had a heart attack in the past, and so I don't want to see Ricky anymore. Kerry needs to become a chicken shit heel because I think that's the only way he's going to actually get over.
Maybe.
And what else happened on the show? Was there anything else?
May interviews Matt Cardona, who blames everyone for his loss but himself. Kyle Davis is with the Renegade Twins, and then we have like a new reinforced Pretty in Power. There's 4 of them now. And the weird thing is that the match that Kenzie asked for was Roxy and Ella, and again Roxy and Ella are 0-2 now against the Renegade Twins, so that might not be the best match to ask for. And then there was a main event.
No, there wasn't. I don't know what you're talking about. Look, I'm going to tell you something. I have a fear.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay. If you follow Twitter, we know that titles changed hands.
Yeah.
And we don't know what they are, but we know the titles changed hands. And I have a fear that they're going to put the titles on Ella and Roxy and basically relegate the Renegade Twins to just like a couple days as champion. I'm hoping I am wrong. I have my fingers crossed, but I do have that fear. And so we're going to end that conversation about that with them. I'm only going to say this about the main event that there wasn't, is that to me it was absolute embarrassing. never, ever should happen. Never should happen again. Somebody from that group needs to disappear. The swerve at the end with EC3 coming out with Black G's gets me and Tyrus looking befuddled. The only thing I could think is, great, two guys in the two worst matches from the pay-per-view are being set up to face each other. That was the only thing I could think. And so that was the end of Power for me. And I have nothing else to say about that show.
Well, then I think that's where we're going to leave it, guys. I mean, you all saw, I know our pal Tex McDermott was not very happy with this. I don't hate it as much as DK did, but again, I felt like that's TV time that could have been used for anything else. I don't know where you go with Rolando now. I mean, he got his shot. Now he doesn't need to ask for that title shot anymore. You go put him in the junior heavyweight division, let him play around there, and let Tyrus lose the belt. I don't know. But that's going to do it for us. Again, Poyo's in the chat tonight, but in a week from now, she'll be right here in the screens with us. And we're going to talk about, we'll spend the first hour of the show talking to Poyo about her career, her aspirations, and how she got started, all that fun stuff. But then in the second hour, we're going to do a regular Alliance Guys show, and Poyo will tell us why we're wrong or why we're right, and all the other good stuff. And of course, with all the sass that Poyo has. And I'm looking forward to it. We will be returning next week, Tuesday, with the pre-party with me, the other Alliance Guys on Wednesday, and of course Poyo next Thursday. And we'll probably have some more information on the Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiator event that is coming on March 25th in Rustic, New Jersey. And I know, hey, there's already a contingent of the Alliance Guys podcast, blogcast, whatever you want to call it. There's a bunch of us coming to New Jersey, and we're coming to see Busky and all the great talents of Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators, including Dave Dahl. But I know we're all tired. We had a long show, and it was a fun show. Thanks, guys, for being here. And until next time, we'll see you at the matches. Thanks for joining the stream. This has been a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com. We genuinely appreciate your support. Would you consider subscribing so you'll never miss a future episode? I'd also like to remind you we do a live stream every Tuesday at 5 p.m. before NWA Power. You can find us on social media at The Alliance Blog. And until next time, we are The Alliance.